Hello, Leg over here, and we're back today on F1 2020. And as you can see, we're here at France for another track guide. I would have done USA for this week's guide, but I also have a league race at USA quite soon, so I don't want to reveal anything to the people I'll be racing against. So instead, I just chose a random track and got France. So we'll be doing a guide at France today, and as always, we'll be doing one lap at full speed, one lap in detail, and then I'll show you the setup. That was the lap then. As you can see, it's a 1 minute 27.7, and now we're going to go in more detail with this lap then. Starting off with the final corner, you want to take an extra wide line so that you can carry as much speed onto this straight as possible just to set up your lap. And now, heading into turn 1, use as much track on entry, and the braking point is just as you hit that curb on the entry towards the right of the track. And then into the first corner, you take as much inside curb as possible. Same for the second corner. Use as much track on exit. Use the throttle to rotate the car. Into this sequence of corners, the braking point is just before that 50-meter board. You want to start braking while turning. Use as much inside curb as possible. And for this one, not really a good reference point anywhere, but you want to use the inside curb to rotate the car. Same here, use as much inside curb as possible, no good reference points there really. But on the exit, short shifting for traction, using as much of the inside curb as possible. Do not run wide on that part of the corner or you just won't be able to get back onto the racing line. And then for here, on the exit onto the straight, use the curb, it's completely fine, basically a flat curb. But into this chicane now, we're going to use as much of the track on entry. The braking point is just before that blue bit of the runoff, and for here you can cut the track a lot, and for this one as well you can use a lot of the curb, which we failed to do at that chicane on that lap, so we definitely lost a bit of time there, maybe a tenth. But into this flat out corner then, the turning point is that 50-meter board, completely flat out, but still maximizing the track usage, as you can see on the apex, nearly invalidating. But into this corner then, the turning point is that 50-meter board, and the braking point is as that light post on the right goes out of view. Initially nearly 100% brake pressure, but then releasing the brake quite quickly, and then just waiting for the corner to open up so you can go 100% throttle. For this one then, the braking point is that little intersection in the curb. You want to take a very late apex for this one. We went a little bit wide, so lost a little bit of time there, but still pretty good. And now for these last few corners, the braking point is as you pass that turn number board there. And taking a normal racing line initially, but then staying to the left side of the track on exit to set yourself up for this hairpin. Start braking as soon as you're in a straight line, and then just take the normal racing line. You can put two wheels on the flat part of that curb to maximize the track usage, and then activate DRS and head up to the line to finish your lap at France. onto the setup now, starting off with the aero. We're using 2-7 wings, and it's very important to be quick in a straight line at France because there's a lot of straight sections here, which is why we're using that low front wing, but we also need that high rear wing so that we can be stable throughout the corners and on traction and just to be able to push the car throughout the lap. For the transmission, using 50-53 for that good traction as well as that off-throttle rotation. A lot of the off-throttle rotation normally comes from that off-throttle differential, so you definitely want to test that out a bit just to make sure you have the optimal setting for you and your driving style. For the suspension geometry then, using pretty normal settings in order to get good rotation as well as good stability. So negative 2.5 on the front camber, negative 2 on the rear camber, and then minimum toe. And for the suspension then, this is where a lot of the rotation in this setup comes from. It comes from the suspension settings. Normally, I don't run this aggressive on the suspension, but I found that even in the race setting, this works very well for me. So we're using 111 on the suspension. This is where a lot of the rotation comes from in this setup. And it may look pretty aggressive, but it does work, as I said. And to counteract that, we're using lower anti-roll bar settings, because if I went like something like 110 or 111 on the anti-roll bars, then it would just be way too impossibly oversteery because we already have that aggressive suspension setting. So the lower anti-roll bar is for that stability, and the higher suspension settings are for that rotation. And then for the ride height, 1-3, so we can stick low to the ground for that good top speed. For the brakes then, using 100% brake pressure and 50% brake bias. This is pretty standard for pretty much every track. And then the same thing for tire pressures, pretty standard for every track. It's minimum tire pressures as always. That's going to be it for today's track guide. If you did enjoy it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, as I post F1 content 3 times per week, Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.